the dolphin to rescue humanity, I made a skinny boy build, right? So this is the Skeletal Reavers. I'm actually kind of surprised with how good this turned out. I didn't think it was going to be that great. To be honest, I don't know how this is going to do at like early game, mid game. This is kind of like an end game build and a showcase of just how good they actually are. I did the same setup with slotting in my wasps, and it wasn't as good, wasn't as strong. These guys hit hard. Like sheet DPS goes as high as 350k, and that's one hand, right? These guys have two hands, so they hit for 700k before buffs, right? Kind of crazy, and they're all content viable, right? Right now you're looking at my temple, so they can clear my temple. It's not as good as the Infernal Legion build. It's not as fast, but it's for the love of the game, for the melee minions. I was even able to complete a 47 pit Abyss Ancient Bone farm, but that has its own trick all on its own, right? I'll go over that too. We'll talk about the build, the secrets and stuff like that. But yeah, check it out. So you can use the timestamps to jump around. I'm going to talk about like damage, you know, our defenses, the gear, and all that kind of stuff. But first, let's bring up their tooltip. So this is the Reaver tooltip, right? And this is the highest I've ever had it with all of the buffs and stuff like that. For sheet DPS, it's 353k for one Reaver. And these guys have a main, this is their main hand damage, and they're dual wielding. So they're hitting twice, right? So this is going as high as 700k before buffs like my Elemental Armament Support Gem, right? It's more damage depending on how many elements is on the target. And then things like Wither and Curses and stuff like that. So there's actually quite a bit of damage happening, and which is not bad for their spirit cost price. But I do sacrifice some damage for more utility. Like if you see these ones, it's 300% crit damage. This one is not as high, it's 272 for the one with the most damage of 353. And then it goes around to like 200. I've been trying like different things. So right now I have it, I believe the maximum right now that I have is like 4.3 hits a second, right? So times 2, which is 6, almost 7. This one is 5 hits a second, right? That also depends on if you have, you know, attack speed stacks from Headhunter, things like that. But anyway, how all that damage is happening on the Reavers is by stacking as much rage as possible. So if you go into the skills, right, if you look at this, I'm running Berserk. So what Berserk does is it grants 79% increased rage effect, right? I have quite a bit of quality on here, levels, and whenever my character has 30 rage, it is a 79% increased effective rage. So because of commanding rage, right, if you don't already know, it grants 1% attack speed and 1% minion damage. So they get 30% attack speed and 30% increased minion damage. Instead, it's increased by 78%. So it's something like 53% increased attack speed and 53% increased minion damage whenever I have full rage, right? And the way I'm generating rage for myself is by using this Blood of Rage on my life flask. So that way it's really easy to get maximum rage, right? You don't have to mess around with any funky war cries, or you don't have to use like a martial weapon to use melee attacks or anything like that to build your rage. All I have to do is use my potion, and you can see it right here, right? Pop my potion, and then the rage bar just goes all the way up. Every use, like right here, every use it goes up by 8 points. So I press it again, right? A few more and it's full. And then whenever I gain rage, right, because of this Warlord Berserker, allies in your presence generate 5 rage per second if you have gained rage recently. So I do have to wait until my rage bar goes down if I'm at full rage for them to generate rage. So you see them kick on. And from what I tested, whenever you gain rage, it generates rage for about like 3 seconds and some change. It gives them about 18 rage if they stay in your presence. So they should be about full rage, right? Pain offering. It starts to degenerate pretty quick. So it was around 200 something, right? So this is basically how I'm stacking rage with the minions. And then on top of that, whenever you're in like a serious fight or whatever, you just use the command ability to enrage. You use that, and then whenever they hit, they gain 2 rage. And if you see how many times they attack pretty fast, right? 3.57 without pain offering. So if you take that 6 hits times 2, right? So 12 rage per second on top of the rage that you're already giving them with using Blood of Rage on the potion. Now let's look at skill gems. So what I have for skill gems, if you see these guys, they're level 40, right? Try to get them as high as possible, +1 and quality. We're running a Diala's Desire because for one, it does reduce reservation, which is really nice. And then 10 quality for more Berserker effect, right, from their enrage ability. Tech Rod's Revenge. This is really nice. You don't have to have this if you're doing, say, mapping, for instance. You could put a Feeding Frenzy in here. But for higher content like temples, or if you're worried about your reavers dying in, you know, Abyss or something like that, you could slot in. You have to slot in a Tech Rod's Revenge. The nice thing about it too is whenever you use your enrage ability and then, you know, they die inevitably, they stay alive for an extra 20 seconds with that extra 40% attack speed buff. So so, you know, even more damage. And then we're running Ulnatul's Embrace, a muster, and then there's this guy, Elemental Armament 3, right? Now, if you read this, it says supported skills deal 12% more attack damage for each elemental element on enemies they hit. And it's really easy to put on 2 of them. It's actually really easy to even chill too. So the way we're getting Ignite is through a Brute with Infernal Legion. And then I also have Embitter on him. Embitter and Cold Attunement. So if the Brute does attack anybody, he actually applies chill instantly. So if you look at his estimated main hand chill magnitude, it's maxed out 50 to 50%. Because the cold damage he's applying is 30k to 55k. So you could use things like Wolves instead of the Skeletal Brute. The Wolves are nice because there's 9 of them. So there's 9 of them to spread around Infernal Legion and chill. It works really well. The problem is whenever you use Wolves, they body block. So that's why I'm using a Brute. All right, so that way, you know, that's 2 of the elements. It's really easy to get Ignite and then chill. And then to shock, we're using Thunderstorm. So all of that sheet DPS plus the 3 elemental elements for, you know, that 36 more damage. So Thunderstorm, this is what we've got. It's the usual setup: Commiserate, Overcharge, Shock Induction, Overabundance. And then there's a new one in here, Electromagnetism. I like having this because it kind of just sucks them all together. And it also applies a hinder as well. If you look at Electromagnetism, right? If you read that, supported skill, shock an enemy that is nearby other shocked enemies, trigger Electromagnetism, sucking in nearby enemies, hindering them. So it's pretty nice. And it constantly happens because the Thunderstorm is constantly shocking. And then, you know, once there's only like 1 or 2 enemies, the shock just remains on them. So the reason it's also good is because with Rupture the Soul proc, and all of them being in close vicinity, kind of helps with that extra damage, right? So let's go back up to the Brute. Let's see. Right, I already talked about this. As much damage as you can get. I don't have last gasp on him. I don't mind if he dies. He's pretty tanky, right? He's got 31k life. Not super high, but pretty good for what I've seen. He just has fire resistance of 78%, and that's enough to keep him alive from the Infernal Legion from killing him. Even with Feeding Frenzy on and all this other stuff. Right? A Skeletal Sniper is in here. He has Chain, Multi-Shot, Dominus Grasp. So Multi-Shot fires 3 projectiles, and each projectile chains 2 times. And then because there's Dominus Grasp, it chains 100% more times. So 4 times. It hits 4 targets each arrow, so that's 12 targets every time this guy attacks. And he's applying Blind and Culling Strike. Now, what you could do is, what I used to have also was you could run just, you know, Fork and have him apply Cold as well. Cold and Embitter, and that way it spreads chill around. But the caveat to spreading chill around for this elemental armament, you don't really need to be too concerned about it because you have the Headhunter on. And this Headhunter, you'll get mods that, you know, all attacks apply like cold damage or chill or something like that. So you'll be chilling things all the time just from using Thunderstorm. And then during normal mapping, the Brute chilling is enough to apply all the elemental debuffs you need for elemental armament. Our cleric just has the normal stuff, you know, minion mastery, elemental army, just trying to get him as tanky as he can be. Rapid casting for faster healing, and then last gasp. Now, pain offering in here, we have this in here. Guadaleti's Ablation. So I'll save this for the mana portion because this is basically one of the ways we regenerate all the mana, right? So Dance Macabre, compressed duration, right? A shorter time frame. So our pain offering only lasts 4 seconds, so that way it can trigger Guadaleti's Ablation. And then Brutus's Brain and a magnified area, right? So we already talked about Thunderstorm. And then we also have this in here. This is a manual cast Temporal Chains. This is the MVP if you want to beat Abyss Ancient Bone farming, because what this does is it puts in one giant area. This is a giant area wherever they come out of the Abyss pit, and the amount of slow that Temporal Chains gives, it's 122% for normal monsters. I think rares are something like 50, and then uniques are 30%. So this is very good. This has basically been my key to beating Ancient Bone Farm on a build like this, which is a little slower and stuff. So if you even have a stronger build, or if I was using Infernal Legion, this makes doing Ancient Bone Farm a lot easier, way easier. So I recommend putting this on. I'll talk about it. I have it on a Weaponswap as well. And then here's Blasphemy right here. Right, this is we're running Despair, Magnified Area, and then Ritualistic Curse. The reason it's on Blasphemy is because it's nice when you're mapping to have that automated Cursed Explosion, so that way you have a lot of extra clear, and then, you know, negative Chaos Resistance is nice for extra damage. Now I'll cover the mana stacking, because it's a little bit different from the Infernal Legion, the way we recover mana, because mana on kill doesn't work with the Reavers, because they're not killing with a dot, right? They're killing with actual melee damage and hits. So the amount of mana I have is 5k, which is enough to hit the threshold for 90% extra Unholy Might damage, right? And that's from this Blackened Heart, right? 4% increased magnitude of Unholy Might buffs. And then with Headhunter buffs, I get as high as, I think, about 5,800. So pretty good, right? And we're running Rupture the Soul. But anyway, so because mana on kill doesn't work, I actually have this on, the Grip of Kulamak. The one I have has the recover 5% of your maximum mana when an enemy dies in your presence, which is really nice. It does have the reduced presence area of effect, so you do have to balance that out with like Sapphire Jewels that have presence area and stuff like that. This one has a percent increased intelligence and then increased maximum mana, right? And then I have it with mana modifiers. Now I've tried different ways of restoring mana, like mana remnants, right? I don't have mana remnants in here, as you can see, because I actually didn't need it. So what I'm doing is I'm getting mana on kill from this. It's only 5%, which isn't a lot. But then there's this, the Pain Offering with Guadalitzi's Ablation. Right? If you read this, right, regenerate 5% of your life and mana per second for as long as that offering was alive. So with Dance Macabre, you summon 2 offerings. So when this effect ends, I get 10% maximum mana regeneration for the 4 seconds that the Pain Offering was up. And it's actually pretty good, right? This coincides with your mana regeneration rate. So if you have increased mana regeneration rate, that 10% that you're recovering over 4 seconds is boosted by your increased mana regeneration rate. So I'll show it to you right here, right? And then I get this little time right here. So mana regeneration rate, 1400 per second. So it's pretty good. If you look at my mana bar, you can't really see it. Hold on, let me move this out of the way. I guess you can see it on my life bar as well. Right, I'll spam my skills, put in curses, and then my mana regeneration just goes straight up, which is enough. That in combination with the mana on kill, I found is enough. It's a little bit overkill if you put in mana remnants, because I feel mana remnants, the way it works is you have to kill things. When things die with an ailment as a chance, with an elemental element as a chance to spawn a mana remnant, I was finding that it wasn't really helping that much. Even though it does overcharge like to, you know, 150%, it wasn't really worth it. It wasn't that great. The way I have it now fits best for how I'm playing. Like if you wanted to try this out and you wanted to use mana remnants, you could use it. Mana remnants just straight up works with these guys. Like the kills count as yours with these guys, but mana on kill percent, like I had it on Sapphires for the Infernal Legion setup, does not work, right? Because for whatever reason. So I've had to do this, get increased mana regeneration rate using these Guadalitzi's Ablation support, and then putting on this Grip of Kulamak. It would be nice if mana on kill just straight up worked, but unfortunately it doesn't. And this is how much mana regeneration I actually have allocated on my tree, right? So we're going here, taking this raw mana of maximum mana because you need Eldritch Battery. And then I'm taking Mind Eraser for mana cost efficiency and regeneration right here. And then this guy, Licking Wounds, right? It's 5% increased life and mana regeneration for each minion in your presence, up to a maximum of 40. So this is really good. Right, mana regeneration right here and life regeneration. And that's all. We're not taking Arcane Blossom. You can, if you decide to take Arcane Blossom, this helps out with your Guadalixi's Ablation. I've had this go as high or be as high as 2200 mana per second, but I'm finding that I don't really need it, right? Because my minions are getting kills, they're killing in my presence. And then if I need extra mana or whatever, I still have my mana pot. So let's talk about that, right? The mana pot that you're going to want. The only mana pots that make a difference is this instant recovery run. This makes the best difference. The other one you can use is you can use a, what's it called? A Lavianga's Flask. But I like this better because you can spam it and it's just instant recovery of 191 mana every time you use it. So if I decide to do something like this, right? And then I just spam it. Pretty good. Almost full mana. And then by that time, I'll get a proc, I'll get some kills. And then I'll be back to full mana in like a second. So there's 3 ways. Those are the 3 ways that I'm restoring mana. It's via my Pain Offering that I'm spamming with the compressed duration so it doesn't last that long. Right? I immediately get the buff for 4 seconds. And then mana on kill using the Grip of Kulamak. And then using the mana potion. Right, those are the 3 ways, and that's enough to satisfy all of the mana requirements for the build. Let's go over the gear. So I'm using an Omen Scepter. I mean, you can use like a Rattling Scepter or whatever. I like this one. For one, it's, you know, it's pretty much max rolled. But if you want to remove one of these mods, you can maybe take out increase maximum life, and you can put in, you know, attack speed or something like that. But for what this is, how I have it, perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, attack speed might be kind of redundant on the Reavers because they already attack so fast. So how this is, I think, is pretty nice, unless you have double critical hit chance and critical hit damage bonus. But right, T1, you know, T1 Spirit, all this stuff that sucks and is hard to get. As for the sockets, I'm using critical damage bonus. I think this makes the best difference for me anyway. You can put in Spirit if you want or increase minion damage. Then I kind of covered this, Grip of Kulamak. This is what is allowing the mana recovery on death. Now, if you didn't want to use this and you wanted to use like another ring, you could do that. Like how I have this, if I put in this other ring instead of the Grip of Kulamak, I actually go up 200 mana, if you see right here. So that's another 8% of Unholy Might damage. But, you know, I prefer the quality of life of restoring mana on kill based on my presence area. And if you don't have this, and if you choose not to go this route, then that's when I would recommend using, what's it called? Mana Remnants. And then a Vertex, right? MVP of the league. Skill gems have no attribute requirements. I think that's the best one. +1 Corrupted Sacrificial Regalia. For Spirit, yeah, the Desecration, Spirit Reservation, Efficiency of Skills. So this is the amulet that I'm running, right? I talked about this in a previous video. It's really hard to craft maximum mana T1 and % increase maximum mana together T1. It's almost impossible. For the Desecration, we're using Quality of All Skills. And then here's a focus that I crafted. It's actually not too bad. It's pretty good, pretty easy to craft a focus. Maybe I'll make a crafting video about this if people want it, or maybe I'll just do it for content and stuff. And then usual stuff, right? Mana ring, whatever boot that you can get. The hardest part about this build is satisfying your resistances. The resistances are rough, so do your best to satisfy resistances. I actually have fire resistance slotted into the glove, right? And then this Headhunter is double resistance. This is a super expensive Headhunter, so do what you can to get your resistances as high as you can get them. As far as the sockets, those are the only things that are different. If you look at this guy, well, I used to have mana regen socketed in here, right? But it's gonna depend. I like having 5k mana. If I had, you know, 5200 mana, maybe I would put in more mana regen in here, because I've had my total mana regen per second be as high as like 500, and you know, it's kind of noticeable. It's nice having that good quality of life. So over here, I have one socketed in for 28% increased mana regen, right? But for the sockets, you can put, you know, however you like. Keep in mind that those increased mana regeneration rates that you have, if you decide to socket them, they will affect your Guadalixi's Ablation. So instead of 1400, this is how I was getting like 2k mana per second, at least, you know, for a minion build. And then, you know, there's all these like luxury items like a Rite of Passage. The only reason why this is really nice is because whenever you kill a rare, when you have a charge, it gives you, you know, Possessed by a Spirit of Wolf. The best ones for this setup are wolf and stag, but stag is super expensive and so is the wolf, so don't really expect people to have it. But 30% increased skill speed is nice, because if you want to cast that curse or, you know, whatever spell, thunderstorm or whatever, what have you, it's really nice. And then the 15% increased movement speed is really good for the reavers, along with the Headhunter heavy belt. The buff for movement speed is very nice, right? These guys, full movement speed, they're moving at like 140 movement speed modifier, so it's really good. It allows you to zoom through. It gives you that really nice little like Zerg feeling, you know. It's pretty cool. That's probably the best part about it. Again, I realize this is like, you know, this is like really kind of like high-end gear, so it's not exactly like new player or even like budget friendly. All this gear is very expensive, but the key to this is obviously you want to get your reavers as high level as possible. You could probably get away. I mean, the nice thing is the Prism of Belief for reavers is cheap, right, compared to like specters and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of some cheaper alternatives. Like if you already have minion gear and you wanted to run reavers, it's a pretty easy switch. And for this, you don't actually have to do mana stacking if you don't want to, right? If you wanted to play ES and do a normal ES build to get the same kind of damage, you would just slot in double evergrasping rings, and then that will also give you, you know, 90% extra chaos damage if you're playing a Lich. The only thing that's nice about this is because we're not using double evergrasping rings, we have all these other extra effects like mana on kill, you know, increased resistances, rarity. You know, rarity here. I could use some rarity on the gloves. Get as much rarity as you can, especially if you're trying to make currency using Ancient Bone Farm. Last but not least, let's talk about the passive tree, right? Actually, let's go look at the minions first again one more time, so we can see just how much, what the stats are. So my minion damage modifier, it's 399 increased damage, so it's pretty high, right? Increased minion maximum life 178. So this, like I talked about, if I use my if I have full rage, it goes as high as, let me see, I gotta check it, 452, right? That's a lot. 452, and then on top of that, with this, if I've hit recently, it's 23 over here, and then plus emboldening lead for another 30. That's what, 50, 52, 53? Yeah, 53. Then what was it? Full rage 53 plus 452. That's 505% increased minion damage, right? It's a lot. That, in combination with full rage on the reavers, attack speed, you know, all the debuffs and stuff. So it does quite a bit of damage. So let's go talk about the passive tree real quick. We'll talk about the Ascendancy first, right? We're taking this, the Crystalline Phylactery. So this is part of the ways that I get maximum resistances, is by trying to craft your own jewel and double corrupting it to try to get as much like resistance as you can. This one I made myself and I corrupted it to get lightning resistance, right? So crit chance, crit damage, increased damage, and then presence area of effect. Those are the things that I recommend if you're going to use reavers. And then I have another one over here. I believe it's increased presence area and then minion damage, crit damage bonus. What I have slotted in is a Blood of Rage. So you could either buy one for a Megalomaniac for Blood of Rage, or you could anoint Blood of Rage. But then if you anoint Blood of Rage, that means you have to get Commanding Rage as a Megalomaniac, and Commanding Rage as a Megalomaniac is really expensive. And then I have this From Nothing right here. I bought this From Nothing with 10 fire resistance, so this is another way you get more resistance, right? That way you get this. You can get Warlord's Berserker, Warlord Leader, and then ally attack damage, right? So this is how you're generating a rage for your minions. Reduced presence of area, but it's being counteracted by Warlord Leader. And then let's see what else. You try to get as much minion damage as possible. So I'm over here, right, taking the cross. I have one random one over here. Mind over matter, you need this. I tried building all damage gets taken from mana before life, but you can't do it with the minion build. I tried crafting my own chess piece. The other thing you want too is Right Hand of Darkness. The Withered on hit, this is really good, right? It's 50% increase effect of chaos damage, and we're doing a lot of chaos damage, from, you know, Despair Curse to all the Unholy Might damage. It's a really big difference. We're taking Gigantic Following over here. It's nice if you have the extra points if you wanted to take all this critical hit chance, but I'm fine with just this guy. And then this big 40%er right here. And then the Omen Scepter is doing stacks of critical weakness, along with the Sapphires with critical hit chance, right? Crit damage bonus, Entropic Incarnation. What else? We got Vile Mending in here. Oh, there's this section. So Relentless Fallen, right? Movement speed and attack speed, which is really nice for your reavers for movement speed. But I'm actually taking minion stun buildup. So I could actually have more minion damage. Instead of 400, 399, I could have like 419. But I'm noticing that this is actually better. The 30% increased stun buildup. Because the reavers stun a lot. They build up stun very quick. So it's really nice when you're in temple or you're doing, you know, ancient bone abyss farming. Basically, they can 1v1 and just stun stuff. And then usually in a stun state, I think this might just be for bosses. When bosses are stunned, they take extra damage. I'm not sure if that's the same case with rare monsters. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is the weapon swap. So if you see here, right, I have a weapon swap curse setup. So this is how we're getting all the curse magnitude for temporal chains. Our manual cast temporal chains with that 100 and wait, let's go weapon swap, second weapon set. Right, if you see our temporal chains, it's 122%. The curse duration is 17 seconds, 5-meter radius, and it's all set to weapon set 2. I have my curse and temporal chains to automatically switch to that second weapon set to use those stats on weapon set 2. So whenever I cast my temporal chains, right, it immediately does this ginormous temporal chain, and then all my other skills are on weapon set 1. Hold on, like this guy, right, this is on weapon set 1, this is on weapon set 1, that's on weapon set 1, everything's on weapon set 1. So if I do decide to cast this, I'll immediately cast Thunderstorm, and then that'll put me back on my damage weapon set for minions. Because if you look at it, right, this is my weapon set 1, all these red lines, this is where all the minion damage is. So attack speed here, damage over here, even this mana regeneration, that's all on weapon set 1, right? So we want to be on that main weapon set whenever we're doing our actual like damage. And then all these green lines, curse magnitude, curse duration, curse magnitude, here's more curse magnitude with this one's like a, you know, give and take. You get curse, you get reduced duration, but you get 18% increased magnitude. Then we're going down here to get zone of control, right? More area, and then also magnitude and also hindered movement speed. And then skill effect duration up here. This skill effect duration is nice because it increases the curse and it also increases the stacks of elemental weakness. So if you're in a really long fight, this thing will get, with quality on your Omen Scepter, this will get your elemental weakness to like, you know, 7%, maybe more if you have a, you know, level 20 Omen Scepter. And then increase area of effect over here. Right, so that's pretty much it for the passive tree. I don't think there's really anything else. My anointment for my amulet is, you know, commanding rage, and that's just the most efficient cost-wise. So I'll go over how the build plays now, right? Because there's two setups for the passive tree, actually. This is my temple setup. I should have mentioned that. This is how I have it set up for temple, right? As much intelligence as you can. But if you look at the gear, I have this ingenuity belt in here. This ingenuity belt is for abyss farming. If I want to do abyss and I want to do ancient bone farming, shroudwalker will get you killed, right? You'll get put into a weird spot, shroudwalker. It'll teleport you into a place with like 4 pits, and you'll aggro all 4 pits. You know, you'll summon, you know, 4 laser beam shooters at one time. So it's a real pain in the ass. So instead, I put an ingenuity belt in there. And then I change my requirements for my stats. Because right now, I'm short, right? See, my dexterity and my strength are not enough for my chest piece. So if I'm going to abyss farm, I basically change these guys. I'll change them all to, you know, dexterity here. And then I'll change all these guys to strength. I'll change everything that I need to change in order to get this chest to work. So now, you know, my chest is on. And then if you look at my resistances, yeah, it's not ideal, right? Even my chaos resistance isn't ideal. But because of how much damage there is, and like whenever I get hit, I immediately restore mana on kill. It kind of balances out. So for endgame purposes, for where I'm at, it works pretty well. And I still have a maximum mana of 5k, so I didn't really lose any damage at all. Now, how the build plays, what you're doing is you're maintaining buffs and you're managing your mana. That's basically what you're doing. And then you're positioning and picking up gear and stuff like that, right? The main ways that you get your buffs are, for one, using your potion to give yourself that full rage, right? To get all the rage benefits. And it also gives your minions rage. And then pain offering, right? Those are your 2 main ones. And then you want to put in your thunderstorm, right? That's another debuff. And then just being in presence area gives the extra chaos damage, you know, the despair curse. You know, don't forget to use your potions. And as you kill stuff, you'll refill potion. And you basically have enough mana regen to fully sustain you, just constantly using Pain Offering. So that way you constantly have the Guadalati's Ablation mana regen buff, which you can see right here. Like if you wanted prolonged duration on your offering, it's nice, it lasts long, but then you got to keep in mind that this buff happens when your offering expires. So you cannot wait for a long time. If your buff duration for your offering is like 12 seconds, it's 12 seconds before you start getting that mana regen that you need. So this is kind of what I'll do, right? I'll spam potions, put my Pain Offering, and then I'll throw around thunderstorms in order to electromagnetize and stick stuff together. And then when I really want more damage, I'll use the command ability to enrage. So that way they gain rage on hit and their rage will stay fixed, and I won't have to be in their vicinity to be giving them with rage with Blood of Rage. I can just kind of use the command ability and then just spam the potions, put up the buffs, and then I can just hang out and, you know, walk around and stuff like that. Now that's how I kind of play Temple. The other caveat is, when do you use the curse? So you can pretty much use this whenever you want, right? You just kind of cast it, switches to weapon sets, and then you use your Thunderstorm to switch back to your weapon set 1 really easily. So you go back and forth, and then it snapshots that curse, right? I usually use these curses in temple rooms, like the commander room, where there's a bunch of Valguards, which you'll see in the playthrough. I actually die in one of those because I get teleported into a Valguard explosion with Shroudwalker. So you could still get blown up, right? And then, like I talked about for Abyss, the Abyss setup, it's a little bit different. When you're doing the Abysses, right, doing Ancient Bone Farm and stuff like that, you want to put one of these curses, one of these cursed grounds, over the Abyss pit. So right when, you know, the Abyss monsters pop out, they're heavily slowed, and it gives you a lot of time to basically just annihilate whatever comes out of the pit. So that tech with the curse can pretty much work for any build. Any build with enough damage can pretty much cruise through Ancient Bone Farming with putting this giant curse area over the Abyss pit, assuming they have access to, you know, cursed ground and getting maximum magnitude for curses and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it, right? Put up your Pain Offering, use your potion to build Rage, Thunderstorm, and then maybe use your Enrage ability. This next section, it's going to go over like little showcases of, like, you know, Arbiter, Simulacrum, Breach, Temple, and then, you know, Bone Farm. So here's Uber Arbiter. It's pretty straightforward. You kind of just get to him, and then, you know, you'll prep him using your potions to build Rage for your minions, and then you'll summon up your Pain Offering. You know, he pretty much always phases at this level. I've never had him not phase and had to play a mini game, right? Pretty easy kill. And then once I'm over here, I have a few more potions, try to keep my rage as high as possible, and then I'll pop the enrage ability. Then throw down you know, where is it? A thunderstorm, and then he's pretty much dead after that, right? He's stunned, and then that's kind of it. Super easy. I have Simulacrum in here, wave 15, because this is probably the smoothest Simulacrum I've ever had. Like, I even stood here and took hits just to see what would happen. This whole time that I was doing it, all I was doing was keeping rage up using my potion, right? Just have to constantly let your rage go down. Then as soon as it starts to go down, you use a potion. So that way it generates rage for your minions, and then your minions are capped off with rage the whole time. And they basically run around. So you'll see me take some hits, but my mana immediately goes back up. I get pretty low, but that's because I sat there and decided to get hit by 2 bosses. The whole time I was doing this, I was kind of AFK, just in the middle, balancing my my rage. But yeah, really easy. The smoothest Simulacrum I've ever had to do. So I put in the entire, like, 25-minute run. I did die once. I got hit. I got Shroudwalkered straight into, like, a Valguard explosion. But you'll see how it plays. It's not too bad. I'm kind of surprised that these guys actually, you know, were able to clear Temple. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, I'll let it play through and you can watch the whole thing. So here's an example of the Ancient Bone Abyss farm, right? Abyssal monsters have increased difficulty and reward for each closed pit. There's 47 additional pits with 6, so what is that, 53 pits? And, you know, it's not super easy, right? Because, you know, the Reavers, the way they are, if you're in a place with like a bunch of pits together, you really kind of have to try to isolate the pits. And for this, I get rid of the Headhunter because it teleporting you to places uncontrollably is going to get you killed. So, but the strat for this, I'll let it play through, is you put the cursed zone, the cursed ground down for temporal chains, and it drastically makes it easier. I wasn't able to do this at all until I started doing that. So imagine with a stronger build, you know, Infernal Legion or some other specialty build that, you know, has struggles with completing all these pits. You just throw that cursed ground down, and then, you know, it is drastically easier. It's like, it's more than half easier. It's probably like maybe 10% of the actual difficulty, but you can still get caught, right? You got to be, yeah, you still have to kind of play. This takes me about, I think, around 10 minutes to do all the pits. But yeah, I'll let it play through. And I think my plan now is to try to make strictly like an Abyss farming build.